welcome to this channel, you guys. I saw this video that Asmongold put out recently. Why no one is talking about this? It looks like it has to do with men and men's health, and I thought it looked very interesting. Asmongold usually has some very good takes. Sometimes they're not so great, specifically when he talks about addiction. But you know, this is something that a lot of people are having to deal with in the workforce. And normally when he talks about these types of subjects, it is very insightful. And so I thought it would be a good idea to try it out as well, just to see, you know, what he's talking about. And, you know, to expand on some of his ideas, because sometimes he doesn't dive deep enough.
Force, we're becoming Sigma crypto bros. Do you think that's it? So men are no longer working anymore? I mean,
yeah,
based, right? I mean, shit.
Men have been steadily dropping out of the workforce, especially men aged 25 to 54, who are often considered to be in their prime working years.
That's right.
As of August 2024, 13.7% of prime age men were not working.
Yeah, that's not good. And, you know,
1954.
Yeah.
That graph going down is not a good thing.
That is a huge increase. That's basically it doubled.
Decline in labor force participation by so-called prime age men is a tremendous worry for our society, for our economy.
It is, because what are they doing instead? They are no longer producing, but they still need wages. And I'm not sure if you guys understand this, but just because you are unemployed does not mean that you can collect unemployment. So they are not working and they have no income. Well, what does this mean for their retirement? What does this mean for them currently? What does this mean for, you know, the future? That means that someone has to support them or they will be out on the street. And having a bunch of men out on the street is generally not safe for anyone. And I'll let you extrapolate what that means.
And probably also for our political system.
When did they invent video games?
Prime age workers who could be working.
And that's another thing. It's not good for the political system either, because all you need is one person, like an Andrew Tate figure, to start running in politics. And then you have this gang of men, 17% of working men, 20 to 30, 35, that can be not good, right? Like, come on, guys. Let's think about it. Why would that be bad?
This puzzling problem.
The unemployment rate for prime age working men sat at 3.4% in August 2024. This number primarily includes those who are unemployed and looking for a job.
Right.
But about 10.5% of men in their prime working years, or roughly 6.8 million men nationwide, are neither working nor looking for employment.
This is an important distinction, is that unemployment can be defined in multiple ways.
Yes.
So, like, you have some people that are unemployed because they work seasonally, some people that are unemployed because of an industry change, some people that are looking for work because they can't find a job.
Yep, they can't find a job.
You also have people that are unemployed and also not looking for employment.
Yes.
So, whenever you see what
they're
these
called
numbers
NEETs,
are,
not in education.
You have to be very careful. This, though, is the number that you're looking for, is the not employed and
or
not
technology.
Looking to be employed.
Compared to just 2.5% in 1954.
What's surprising is it's not a COVID phenomenon. It's not a recession phenomenon.
And for every prime age man who is unemployed and looking for a job, there are more than 3, in some years 4, who are neither working nor looking for work.
So what's driving men out of the workforce?
So,
and if left unchecked, what impact will it have on the U.S.
do some
economy?
research on the side here.
Let's see why.
Nearly half of prime age men out of the workforce cited obsolete skills, lack of education and training, poor work record, or security issues as a reason preventing them from work.
education is a very important predictor of a prime age man's odds of being out of
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Too many women in the workforce? I mean,
I don't think it has to do with too many women in the workforce, because, and the reason why is after World War II. During World War II, women had to join the workforce because all the men were out at war. And when they came back, those women weren't all of a sudden just let go and fired and put back into the houses. They continued to work. Ever since then, women have been in the workforce. So 1940s. This is a relatively new issue. I think it's disingenuous to blame women taking jobs. Like, that's not, no, that is a goofy ass take.
I don't know. I feel like women have been in the workforce for quite a while, right? I mean, like the 90s, I'm sure there were a lot of women working, right? And so, like, how has it gone down from there?
Yeah, women have been in the workforce since the 40s.
Big impacts are on the
Massively
non-college
in the workforce.
educated
Yeah.
groups on their ability to enter and stay in the labor market.
Men who are
Well,
not
that's
called
where the issue is. It's definitely there because it's the guys that don't have any sort of like college degree. They don't have any formal education. There used to be a lot of jobs that you could do that didn't require that. But the fact is that now I feel like a lot of those jobs are being automated, or they are not as important as they were. They're not needed as much.
Right. There's not as many of them, and they're just not needed anymore. They have been pushed over to other countries. You know, there used to be a massive steel industry in the United States. That's gone. And it's because other countries can produce steel cheaper than we can. And you're not going to bring those jobs back. Tariffs are not going to bring those jobs back. Like, that would take decades of tariffs to bring those back. It's not something, you know, you can't just build a steel mill in 2 years.
It's like back in the day, you could work at a factory and then, you know, bolt nuts onto a Ford. But you don't need to do that
and then you
anymore
get a pension after 30 years.
So it's like, where do those people
Guaranteed
go?
funds.
At a certain point, nowhere. What the fuck?
Yep, they end up unemployed.
You can't automate trades? You can, but it's just that we're so far off, it's not realistic.
And the thing is, I don't think you can automate trades, but trades are not they are a high-skilled labor. That is high-skilled labor. You know, I couldn't go out and do trades right now. It would take me years to, you know, work my way up to being able to make a living off of it. They're going to start me off as an apprentice, and then I work up to, you know, I'm sure there's other steps along the way up to master plumber or master electrician. And there are tests that you have to take. There are certifications. That's a very long process. That's not something that you just wake up and do. You're 30 years old and you're going to start a new career in plumbing. You're going to be stuck with like 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are making more money than you, who are better educated than you, who have more experience, and you just don't have the time. Your body can't handle that work. I've got a friend who was a plumber, and he did that in his early 20s. And he was saying, like, he would be making, you know, he was an apprentice and he was only making 30 grand a year, really busting and working hard and working, you know, 60-hour work weeks. And he's just dead tired. His body hurts. And then he has to go to work again, like still sore from the day before. And that wear and tear on your body, you know, you can't do that when you're 50. You can't do that when you're 60. You just can't do it. Your body can't keep up.
For it to happen. Also, being a plumber or being like a carpenter, like that's really hard work, man.
Yeah, it's very hard work.
So a lot of people aren't really going to want to do that. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, like, you can make
there's
a good apprentice,
amount of money doing journeyman,
that. Some people
master,
do, but yeah, it's hard to do that.
Those take time, and it's a huge investment in tools.
At the same time, fewer younger men have been enrolling in college over the past decade.
If you look at the
well, that's not really a big surprise when you see initiatives that are given that privilege women. Like, I see this all the time.
Now, I don't agree with this, because this is not, this does not mean that, 56% of women, there's 56% of women here. It just means that less men are going to college, not necessarily that now more women are going to college. That women are taking those slots that would have been given to men.
Where it's like, well, this is some sort of initiative that's made to get more women to go to college or get more women to be involved with something. Big fucking surprise, you're going to see men that aren't going to be as enrolled in college. It makes sense. Of course. It's an incel take. That's an incel take. It's a fact.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. It's a fucking
fact. Like, how many times do you ever see articles and like initiatives that companies do that are like getting more women involved with X, Y, or Z thing?
See, and he's bringing up the what he's talking about is the Ubisoft thing, where they were saying, oh, we have these internships available, but they are only for women or for trans people. That is a problem. Like, that is a problem. That you have to, in order to be an intern, you have to be one of them. No, that is obviously bad. But these initiatives to help women get into college are not the same. It is not a college saying, oh, in order to get accepted to, this university, you have to be trans or you have to be women. No, it is, third party saying, hey, women, you can go to college and we'll help you get there.
All the fucking time. All the fucking time. And so, yes, if you're a guy, like, women have these innate advantages that these companies are putting out there. They're putting money up to give them an advantage. So, yes, obviously men are at a disadvantage, because if you're competing against somebody that has a head start or some sort of advantage over you, then now it's harder for you to compete. It's very simple. It's more than that. It's not about initiatives. Females outperform males academically, average as early as high school. Sure, I'm saying, like, that's definitely probably a factor, but you're talking about college. I'm not talking about high school. Are they trying to rectify the historical disadvantage? Well, rectifying a historical disadvantage by disadvantaging a different group of people, this is not virtuous.
And this is correct too. This is a good take. And that's what is kind of frustrating watching a lot of people or listening to their takes, is because they have very good points mixed in with some not so great points, but it makes it seem like everything that they are saying is true because of it's I guess you could say poisoning the well, because he does have a lot of very good points, and then there are some that are not so great.
Like, you're not rectifying anything, because what happened
because
to
you go
somebody
so
50
far
years ago isn't
and
what's
then it's
happening
racist
now.
again.
Like, if you're applying
so
an
far
unfair
that it is
standard
sexist
onto
again.
a person because of something that they didn't do, then you're treating them unfairly.
Yes.
It's really simple.
Geography of where the most prime age men out of the labor force are in particular, they tend to be in places that have experienced manufacturing declines.
Exactly. It's because, there's no, like, physical, like, labor jobs that are not super intensive that are low skill that men can have because they've been automated.
Yes.
To graduate.
Yes, I agree with that. And they are trying to automate other jobs that a huge portion of men do. That's what I wanted to show you guys. It's Tucker Carlson talking about driverless trucks.
Tucker Carlson?
And Tucker Carlson has a very, very good point here. And I think this relates.
In favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology, specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry.
Are you joking? In a second.
Yes.
In a second.
Absolutely.
In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, Department of Transportation, we're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men. I don't want
Yes.
to put 10 million men out of work.
Yes, because what happens when you put 10 million men out of work? Where do they go? What do they do? They are 10 million men who do not have the ability to, do something more. There's a bell curve, that like education and intelligence. And, we've all been in those math classes or those high school classes where, some people, they can sit there and try to do math problems all day, no matter how hard they work, no matter how hard they try, it just doesn't compute. It does not go in. They can't understand it. I mean, you guys have seen on Twitter, I'm sure, where somebody posts an obvious clickbait, math equation. And, if you open up the replies, half of the answers are wrong. Some of the top liked comments are just completely wrong. One of the ones that I've seen is the 6 plus 6 plus 6 times, 0. What does that equal? A lot of people say 0. I have no idea, but they don't understand the order of operations for math problems. And that is like 6th or 7th grade level math. Those people can't comprehend it. They cannot comprehend it. They need jobs too. And, if they need jobs, and they're everywhere, they're all walking around us. They need jobs too. Otherwise they end up on the street, or they end up, on welfare. They need jobs. And the trucking industry is somewhere where they can work.
Because you're going to have 10 million dead families, and the cascading effect from that will wreck your country.
So
yes,
good.
The same thing's going to happen
jobs.
with women
they weren't
too.
Glamorous jobs. They were,
Yep,
automobile
exactly.
factories,
There it
sometimes
is.
mines, other
see,
manufacturing jobs.
this
But they
job
were
takes 2 people to do, right? To put this seal on the glass of the car. Now it is done by a machine, and it can do hundreds of thousands of these cars every day. And that machine is repaired by 1 or 2 people, and those 1 or 2 people fix all the other machines that do everything else too. Like put these stripes on the car, put in the headlights. Those 1 or 2 people fix the machines that do all these other jobs that would have normally taken so many more people to do.
respected,
Yeah.
they were stable, and they could support a family.
That's another really big component that a lot of people might not realize, is that people had a manufacturing job where they would just put bumpers on Fords.
They were
And
union
this guy
jobs.
made what would be equivalent to the over $100,000 a year.
Yes.
This is a guy. It's like you go back and you watch
It
old
is
sitcom.
a low skill, low education job that paid very well. It was enough to have a family on. It was enough money to own a home, own a house, and own 2 cars and have a few children off of one person doing this job that anyone could do. Anyone can do that. And that doesn't exist anymore. Like, in my job, I had to go to college. I had to get certifications. I had to get licensed. And, I'm making decent money. But, it's enough for me to afford a mortgage payment that I'm having to split with a roommate and a car. And I can't imagine, having to support an entire wife and children on top of that. I barely have anything left over after all my bills are paid. And, you might say, oh, well, maybe it's your budgeting. Your budgeting is bad. I do budget. I've, made the Excel sheet. I have multiple accounts where my, one account is just for bill pay. The other account is for, spending on myself, like groceries and stuff like that. The bill pay account is for everything that is a monthly, normal, regular expense. Electric, mortgage, insurance, internet, phone, all those that don't really change month to month.
And it's the guy that works in a factory and he owns a house, a boat, a car, and he has a wife and 2 kids, and the wife stays at home.
That was the
How do you think
American
that
dream.
happens?
Since then, due to technology-driven growth, a little bit due to Chinese competition, you've had a lot of manufacturing firms and the places where they were located that that were one-horse towns become ghost lands, right?
Like
Yeah.
Detroit.
Wages
Detroit,
could also be
Chicago.
a contributing factor. Median annual wages for men with a high school diploma have fallen from just over $57,600
Yeah. It has fallen.
in
Right.
1973
Look.
to $45,000 in
That's almost 20%. I think that is 20%. Yeah, that's 22%. It's fallen by 22%.
2023.
That is a crazy amount. Like, again, like you think about that number, like what is the math on that? Like almost 20%. Yeah, it's almost about 20%.
It's more than that.
Like,
It's
think about that.
22.
20%.
It's a 22%.
That's crazy.
That is a 22% decrease, right? And I'm sure this accounts for inflation, right? But you have to remember that prices of everything has also gone up exponentially. So now you are making less money and needing to spend more just to make it through.
Huge fucking reduction. It's like if you cut off somebody's leg, that's 20% of their body weight.
Yes.
20% is massive. Add inflation. I think this is probably adjusted for inflation.
Adjusted for inflation.
Yes.
At the same time, wages for those with a bachelor's degree or more have increased by about $6,300 during the same
Yeah. And what is that? 8%?
period.
9?
This decline in earnings led to a 44%
Because nobody needs people with no skills and no education anymore.
Yes.
And this is going to become a bigger problem every
And the thing is, with those jobs, they were respected. Even though you had no skills, you were respected because you had a union and you had a union job, and people respected you for it. I think it was JFK, was it, who wrote off of the coattails of unions. Like he was an actor, right? And he had enormous success because he was on part of the unions. And then as soon as he became president, he was the one who demonized unions to the point to where, the way that people view it now. Like when you think of union, you think, oh, you're just a lazy bum. You're just there collecting a check. You don't do anything useful. Where do you think that mentality came from? That was not always what people thought.
single year it will become a bigger problem. And eventually in like 20 or 30 years, I think we are going to be running into a existential threat that a person will no longer be able to reasonably expect to gain employment.
Yes.
I think it's happening.
It's happening right now with that problem. People are already unable to get work, right? Like, we're already there. People are already sending out hundreds or thousands of job applications and hearing back from one or two people, and then they don't get hired. That is happening right now to people. It was happening to me a few years ago, like just a couple years ago. And the thing was, I had industry experience, I had my licenses, and I was still not getting callbacks in an industry that was booming. What do we think is going on, guys?
Because there are so
it's
many
only going to
things that are
get
becoming
worse
automated.
unless we can fix it.
It's more than 20%. It's a 20% reduction when it should have been a gain of 20%. No, it's adjusted for inflation. This is what's going to happen, right? Because like you think about it, how many of you guys, like I'm 34.
People have less money
How many
and
of
have
you
to
guys
spend
remember
more
having
just
your
to
mom
live.
take you to the supermarket whenever you were a kid, and 15 aisles were open? You guys
Yes.
remember that?
Winn
You go to
Dixie.
Albertsons.
All of
you
them
go to
were
Walmart,
always open.
You go to Costco. Go to Sam's Club, Publix, right? HEB here in Texas. Now, how many lines are open?
Yes. Either it is all automated with the self-checkouts, or there are 2 or 3 lines open when there used to be 10 to 15 lines open. That is a massive reduction in workforce. Not to mention that Walmart is one of the biggest, they use food stamps and unemployment the most. There's a documentary that you guys should watch about how Walmart abuses the U.S. system. The high cost of low price. Right? The high cost of low price. It's on YouTube here. You can watch the whole thing, and you will realize how bad and evil Walmart is. Because what they'll do is they purposefully underpay their employees and short them on hours, so that way their employees stay eligible for food stamps and for government housing, and then their HR department will help their employees get those benefits. So that way Walmart doesn't have to spend any more money. They ride off of our tax dollars that you and I pay for. And then people have the gall to go and say, oh, those CEOs, those companies, those corporations, they deserve to make their money. They deserve it. They shouldn't be taxed harder. If you tax them harder, it's gonna roll down to us. Do you remember trickle down economics? Corporations in the 80s, they were in the 90s, they were saying, if you guys lower taxes on us, then wages will increase. We promise those wages will come back to the people. So where is it? Where is it? Why is it that the workforce is reducing? Why is it that people are getting paid less now for the same type of work? Why have wages with inflation gone down by 22%? Where's the trickle-down economics? At the same time, remember, these companies, these Walmarts, these companies are making record profits. Year after year, making record profits during one of the greatest depressions since the Great Depression due to COVID. And then we had the PMI loans, the business loans for all of these companies. It wasn't just for small businesses. I want you to remember that. It wasn't just for small businesses. These big, huge companies were also taking advantage of those loans. And it is astounding. It is so difficult for me to process how you can you can still say like, oh, Walmart deserves to make that much. The CEO of these companies that are squeezing the workforce deserve to make that kind of money. I don't understand it. The disconnect is unreal. But then again, it is also because of that bell curve. That intelligence bell curve that we talked about. The people that can't do basic multiplication and math and order of operations, they cannot. They don't have the processing power to get to that answer. And even if you tell them that answer, the other rule comes in. It is easier to fool a man than it is to convince them that they have been fooled. That's why. And the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger effect is basically that the dumber you are, the more confidence you feel in your answer, because you do not have the ability to scope that you do not have the answer. Smart people, very smart people, usually underestimate their intellectual abilities, whereas people who are on the other end will generally overestimate their intellectual abilities. Oh, right. Yeah.
Maybe like like 2 or 3, somewhere around there, right? And so that's what happens.
Instead of one person at one cash register, now it is one person working 10 self-checkouts.
Where did all of those people go? Well, nowhere. They're gone. Their job's gone.
They're part of
also,
this
think about
exit.
like whenever I was a kid and I would go to like McDonald's, there would be more people behind the counter than there are now. And this is happening everywhere. Self-checkout.
the self-checkouts.
What I'm saying is that self-checkout is a form of automation. And everything is, it's going to be cost-cutting. Exactly, mobile orders, there's a bunch of stuff. Self-service checkout. And so all of these things are done in order to remove people that are unskilled workers from the workforce. And another reason is that with unskilled workers, most of them are, you're going to have a high, listen, I mean, I think Taco Bell uses AI to take your orders now. And the reason why I think that is because they keep getting my order right. This used to never happen. And now I'm always getting the right food.
That's why.
No, something is wrong here. And I think they're using AI.
No, it's because they increase their pay, so now they can be more picky with who they hire.
Wendy's too? Yeah, they're all doing it. And this is what's happening. Carl's Jr., And so, well, where's
they
that
cut off
person?
the bottom
What's
rungs
that
of the
person gonna
ladder.
do? Now they're gone. So that's where the issue comes in. That's where the problem happens. And you're seeing automation and technology removing unskilled labor jobs from the market at a ratio that is way faster than those jobs. Like, because the difference between, like, sorry, I'm going off on a big tangent here, but like, you can compare this abstractly to the Industrial Revolution, right? Because we're having a second revolution. But the Industrial Revolution was done
to increase output
as a means to an ends of producing more of a product.
Yes.
So the goal was not necessarily to reduce the amount of workers. It was more or less to increase the amount of product. Whereas automation and, AI, the entire purpose of it is to reduce the workforce.
Yes.
That is the primary goal for something like Flippy.
Yes. And the same thing is that people are also complaining about population stagnation. If the number of jobs is going down and the number of population is going up, well, they're going to intersect and then cross over. And now there are not enough jobs for all of the people because there are way, way, way too many people, and the number of jobs have decreased. The number of jobs that exist have decreased.
Flippy is done. He exists so McDonald's doesn't have to hire somebody.
Yes.
To reduce costs. Yes, exactly. And that's what's happening. And so that's, and I think that men, and it's especially true with physical labor jobs, right? Like manufacturing. These were jobs that low education men would always have. And I think that this is also a reason too. It's like, again, take a step back. This is the reason why you see such a massive resurgence of like red pill stuff. This is why you see people like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and all of these people that are like trying to provide like a world outlook for men.
Exactly. Those men who are not busy working, who do not have a full-time job, who make up that 14 or 12% of men, working age men who are unemployed, what are they doing with their free time? They're watching Andrew Tate. They're watching Jordan Peterson. Do you want that? Do you want more of that? Men used to, those age men used to go out drinking, go to the bars, go watch football, or, go fishing or play video games, right? And now those spaces are no longer areas where men can feel comfortable. Compare the Call of Duty lobby from 2010 to, today. You can't act like that. And that is a way that men bond with one another. It is not the way that women bond with one another, and it's not the way that men and women bond with together, right? Because if women say something like that to men, it really hurts. Like a woman called me a creep, that would really hurt me. That is something that would like really hurt me. But if men call me a creep, I don't care. You're a creep too, dude. You're hanging out with me, right? You can't act like that anymore in those spaces. You can lose your job for acting like that. People will dox you. They'll figure out where you live, post your picture all over the place. Like, that's what ends up happening when, normally men could have that outlet with one another, and now they cannot. And that is why there's such a resurgence of these Andrew Tate types, because he is dipping into and he is creating that safe space. Well, safe for men. But he's creating that space. He's forcing that space to exist when normally it wouldn't have. And what really upsets me about Andrew Tate is that he will have some very good points. Like, every once in a while, he will have a good point or two. For example, he talks about why he says something about why would a woman pick you? What do you have to offer? And that's a good point. That is a very good point. Companionship, being interesting, being funny, if not those things, having a personality, being able to hold a conversation, or, like he says, having money, having a good job, having a Bugatti. You just have to have something. Nobody wants to, date or be with an empty shell, because there's nothing of depth there. And that's something that I've struggled with as well. And it's not something that I asked Daddy Andrew for, but it is something that people do struggle with. And it's like a clock. A broken clock is right twice a day. That's literally Andrew Tate. Out of 24 hours of him saying dumb things, there's a couple of minutes there. It says something that is true.
Because now there's no path that an uneducated man is going to be able to take that's going to help him.
Right.
Right? Internet dads. Yeah. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no way that things are going to get better for this kind of a person.
Yes.
They're just fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Growth in the exit rate of men without a college degree from the workforce between 1980 and 2019.
I think, honestly, status plays more of a role than wages. As I said before, you had a manufacturing job. It was respected. You were part of a community, breadwinner for your family. You had
men do
organizations
like status a
unions or
lot
Rotary
more.
clubs that surrounded your job.
I think.
And that's gone.
In general, men without children are also less likely to participate in the workforce compared to men with children.
Of course.
Yes, because they have
Especially
something to
men
work
without
for.
education or training after high school.
What we have
Yeah, there's a word for that. Not in education, training, or technology. Not in, it's interesting.
seen is
Something like
a
that.
huge rise in the proportion of prime-age men who've never been married, and a very, very significant decline in the proportion who are currently married and have kids at home. And those two trends track closely with the big changes that we've seen about male attachment in the labor force. Correlation isn't always causation, but looking at that
It's obviously a factor. I know plenty of people that are I don't want to get married or do anything like that because I can't even take care of myself. You're not really in a position, because this is the thing, is that culturally, we can all pretend like this isn't the case, but it's been the case for thousands of years, because this is the way our biology is that the man is supposed to provide for the woman. That's the way it works.
Yes, typically.
That's how it works in almost every single animal colony, at least of mammals. This is the way it works for people. This is the way it's worked in pretty much all cultures.
There are a few species where that is not
that's
true.
the reason, because women
think
have
lions,
kids and they're weaker
hyenas.
and smaller, and men have to provide for them while they take care of the kids. So if a
Typically
man
with
can't provide for
predator
his wife, then he's not going to be looking
species,
for
I
a
believe.
wife. Or at least there's a lower probability of it. Because we act oh yeah, we're beyond this. Oh, we're past this. No, we're not. No, we're not. Biology says that we're not past this. If you look at the entire history of human beings,
Yes.
99.999% of all of the time that we have been people, that paradigm has been used. It's not going to go away. That's it. You can't escape nature. Yes. And so if a man can't provide for a family, then he's not going to try to look for a family.
Right.
It's that simple. Now, that's not always true, and there's plenty of broke dudes with baby mamas everywhere. However, overall, it will lead to a decline because the conscientious ones will decide not to do it.
Respondents is real important, I think.
Meanwhile, 57...
And that's the other thing, right? Like you can't provide for a family, but there are instinctual needs that you have.
percent of the roughly 10% of men not looking for work said their physical or mental health was the main reason for not being employed, with 55% citing a disability, serious illness, and or receiving disability benefits.
The whole question about the health and the mental health of male workforce dropouts is an extremely important and I think concerning one.
I think this is, again, like the reason why you see like men's like those alpha male boot camps that like guys had, and like they're all crying in the pool together and everybody's laughing at them. The problem is that men are not really, like, they're not given spaces where they can grow as a person in a way that's healthy. And I think that they look for spaces like that, and they find it on the internet, or they find it with like different types of like, these like male like fitness influencers, etc. But like if you think back at like a lot of ancient cultures and the way that like even our culture used to be, right? There was a lot more of a traditional, some form of initiation ritual, things like the military, things like some form of civil service, like, the CCC and other types of like New Deal things from like the 40s. And so there were a lot of other ways that we approached this problem. And now there really aren't any. Yeah, there's coming of age rituals. Yeah, exactly. There aren't any. And the like how to be a man is a question that apparently nowadays most people can't answer.
Yes.
And I think the problem is that like nobody knows that, and the entire popular media is polluted with basically bad role models. Mm-hmm. It's basically like, and it's not that Andrew Tate is a bad role model with everything. There are a lot of things that Andrew Tate says that I think are true. Same with Jordan Peterson.
A lot of things are not true, but some things
really are the model
like
character for the person that you want to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all the issue too, is because if you don't even know what your own identity is, how can you go after it? You see what I'm saying? And so people...
A very good question to think about is like, if tomorrow you wake up and you won the jackpot and you never have to worry about money again, who are you? What would you do? Would you still play video games? Would you still read books? Would you still sit down and watch Netflix? Right? Who are you when work is no longer something that you have to do? You don't ever have to go back to work again. And that is something that I struggled with as well, because I have always had to, worry about, am I going to have enough money? Is like money has been such a huge part of my life that it's just like when I don't know what I would be if I didn't have that worry anymore. And I do think that everyone needs to sit down and ask that of yourselves and try to find someone, a role model who has that.
Like a man has been divorced from their identity. They've been divorced from having ownership over their own body. They've been divorced from being able to have any sort of like a future. And the problem is that you can say, oh, well, just go to college. I'm going to give you guys the honest truth. The bottom 20% of intelligence of people are not going to be able to have jobs because they're too stupid to make decisions. They're just stupid. They're not like, you can't just put somebody in Harvard and then after 4 years, they're going to become a neuroscientist.
Yes.
There are lots of people that are just stupid.
That's the bottom 20%.
There's no fixing this, right? Or at least not right now. Yeah, there's no fixing this. No, it's just how it is, right? It's the bell curve. It's the same with everything.
That's just the way it is.
There's 7 feet tall and some people that are 4 feet tall. That's the way it is. Some people with a lot of hair, some people without so much. Some people are really black, some people are really white.
Yep.
That's it. And so everything is like that.
Yes.
And some people are really
It's not to
smart,
say
some
that you
people are
shouldn't
really stupid.
try.
Like there
You
are
should
so
still
many
always
pieces
try.
and like ways this
Right.
comes together. More than 50%
Like
of college
if
degrees
you
are
want
worthless
to do
as well.
something, do it.
Don't forget that men are also more likely to be addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Because you
Addiction
don't
can
have
play
to
a
be
role.
Ronnie
Yeah, but
Coleman to be
why are they
successful.
getting addicted to drugs and alcohol?
You can still get
I
up
think that
on
they're
that
getting
stage
addicted.
and get
a
there.
lot of people that I think get addicted to substances like that do it as a form of escape.
Yes.
They do it because they're unhappy with their life. Now, you obviously have some people that are just, addictive personality is just what they do, right? But I don't think it's as common.
Stressing proportion of the men who are out of the work.
The addiction thing, it is escapism. Whether it's video games, it's gambling, or it's alcohol and drugs, like it's escapism. If you see someone who is on the street, and they look like they're on drugs, yeah, because they're out on the street. Try living out on the street sober 24 for a week. Like you don't have any resources. You're cold, you're tired, it rains, you get wet. It's 100 degrees outside. You're hungry. There's nowhere comfortable to sleep. Society is constantly trying to make the seats more uncomfortable, places less comfortable for you. And then you also have to worry about, other people attacking you or hitting you or screwing with you. Yeah, like that sounds like a miserable existence. Who wants to be like that? Who wants that? No one wants that. Right? Like really sit down and think about it. Nobody wants to do that. So why do you do the drugs? Because it allows you to escape. You don't have to exist in that state. Your mind goes elsewhere. Your mind is, tripping on the drugs. It makes it fun. Nobody wants to be there. They're using the drugs to escape from their reality. And it's really sad. And the fact that they don't have the resources, or that people are trying to take away resources from people who are really hurting. And, Jesus says, here's the quote. He said, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They answered, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you, Lord?" And he replied, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Now, what he is saying there is that if you don't do these types of things to help out, the people who are suffering, then you would not do it for him. You're going to get your eternal punishment. Like when you go and, look down on someone who is, suffering, and you think poorly of them, or you make fun of them, or tear them down, imagine you're doing that to Jesus. That's what he's saying there. Whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me.
Workforce say they're using pain medications every day.
Jesus
A
Christ.
2017 research paper estimates that an increase in opioid prescription between 1999 to 2015 led to about 43% of the decline in men's labor force participation rate during that period.
So then you have to ask, what sort of
It's because people aren't active anymore, too. That's another big factor. Like John F. Kennedy had a lot of initiatives and things like this to get guys
Presidential
active,
fitness
especially
test.
high school age guys.
Mm-hmm.
And back in school, for a lot of people now, they don't have to do PE anymore. And so now you have people this is again, going back to it's again, return to monkey. back in the caveman days, men were physically active all of the time. And I bet how many of you guys, whenever you were a kid, you were physically active like 5 hours a day. You were going around, running around, you're out in the backyard, you're going to your friend's house, you're riding your bike around, you're doing all kinds of crazy shit, right? More like 8 hours a day, right? Yeah, we were all like this. And now you're probably not as much. Well, that's the way that people are supposed to be. And you can see this with like any sort of uncontacted.
Humans are predators that chase down their prey. We exhaust them. That means running miles and miles and miles chasing after an animal. That is how we hunted. That is what evolution has created for us. And now we sit and do nothing all day.
Or any sort of, older tribe. Like you go look at an African tribe, they're running around like fucking crazy. They're moving around constantly.
Yes.
None of them are just sitting around doing nothing all day. And so again, it's going back to return to monkey. People have been divorced from the fulfillment of physical activity. You see what I'm talking about here? It's about momentum. Yeah, it's about people moving, right? You're moving your body. You're moving. You're stretching your arms, right? It's like I like that's one of the reasons why, like for me, whenever I was having back trouble, I said I refuse to take painkillers for this. I will not take painkillers for this.
Because that is a Band-Aid.
I'm going to
the problem
exercise
still
in
exists.
different ways because I think the human body is made to move. It's made to heal itself, and it's made to improve.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And I'm still in the process of doing that now, even. Standing desks are goated? Yeah, that's what you do.
Well, standing around all day is not good.
And if I see a lot of people, by the way, if you see a lot of people that are exercising, and I'm not talking about bodybuilders that like die of like heart complications, but I'm talking about like people that are physically fit and physically active. Those people live to be 90. Those are the ones that live a really long time. The ones that are physically active. Yeah, take up an activity. Yeah, exactly. Fight Club was right. Well, in some ways, right? But like what I'm saying is that's a huge factor. And I think also like
Fight Club was right.
Like being fat or being out of shape. Like then this creates a feedback loop of not having confidence because I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm skinny, I'm ugly, I don't look right. Now I can't really get a girlfriend. Now people don't like me as much, right? And so you see how like all of this has created like a perfect storm for men to completely lose any form
for everything
of
to spiral out of control.
That's what I think has happened.
Yes.
And it's actually such an existential spiritual problem.
Yes.
But it manifests in like very physical ways.
Yep.
Like, for example, being fat or not being able to have a job or not having a girlfriend. But all of these are symptoms of a spiritual disease. I know this sound like I'm using kind of like big terms here, but I really do think this is what's happening.
Pain are we talking about? Are we talking about physical pain? Are we talking about metaphysical pain? There's an enormous amount of depression, mental health challenges that men in this grouping face.
Yeah, but why do they get depression? No, that's the question. Because, like, yeah, being able to acknowledge that it's mental health and depression, great, true, yeah, right? But, like, why?
This is a chicken and egg question.
And it's because of lack of confidence. You don't have the confidence to be anything. It starts with, maybe losing your job, and then because you lost your job, you have no confidence, and you're sitting at home eating potato chips because it's easy, because it's a small win. Those potato chips turn into you weighing 300 pounds, and now you can't get your confidence back, and it just kind of steamrolls and snowballs out of control to the point that where you end up.
Yeah.
Did you drop out because you were feeling sad, or are you sad because you dropped out and you're living
Yes.
on the couch?
Unemployment is really terrible for people's well-being. Often
Yes.
people adapt to all kinds
I think a lot of people, it's probably that there isn't a social support network for them either way. There's not a support
It's also,
network for them
like,
being in school.
It's
and
found
there's
that
also not
when
a support
people
network for them to get back into
stop
school
working,
or education
like
in another
with the
form,
older
right?
generation,
Like a trade.
you know, people who are 60, 70 years old,
don't have
once
that,
they
sadly.
stop working,
Yeah,
their
and I think
body
that's one of the
slows
big
down,
issues. And I
and
think
that's
that
when they
that's
start
why there's like a
dying more
growing
quickly
resentment
in
I
bigger
think a lot of
numbers.
men have towards women, which is women, it seems like, have a lot more like social structures and social like networks that exist for their benefit that men don't really have access to. I think
Yes.
it's a huge problem.
negative shocks, losing a kid, being widowed, whatever, and eventually kind of come back. But long-term unemployment is one of the worst things in terms of that. So what you have is a kind of scarring effect, and it's worse for men because their identity is much more wrapped up in their role as a worker.
as a
Well, of
provider.
course, the reason why a man's
Yeah.
identity is wrapped up as a role as a worker, again, I feel like I'm, like I'm saying the obvious thing that nobody can acknowledge is true. It's because a man is expected to take care of his family and provide for a family.
Yes.
A woman's not expected to do that in the same way. That's because of biology. You're not going to rewrite this. It's not going to change next week. There's not going to be a law written that makes this better. This is the way that people are hardwired and programmed down to a genetic level. So the
Yes.
reason why men being divorced from the ability to earn a living is an existential spiritual problem is because the ability to earn a living is their ability to reproduce.
Yes. And, you know, we spent, since the dawn of man, men were generally providers and defenders. And if you take their ability to do that away, now they don't have anything. All the popular culture and media shows that that is what men have always been, right? And you can be emotional. It's good to be emotional and to feel those feelings, but like you can't do that either. There's really not a role model. There's not a person in popular media that you can do that with. I mean, Star-Lord from the Marvel movies, but like nobody's like, I want to be Star-Lord. People are more like, I want to be like Thor. And you saw what happened to Thor when like he lost his purpose, turned into a couch potato.
Fundamentally.
Declining workforce participation can potentially leave a lasting impact on the American economy.
It means slower growth of the economy, obviously. It means bigger wealth gaps within our society.
It certainly will have an impact on our productivity and probably already is.
The U.S. has been experiencing a severe shortage in labor.
This is
Still-
going to keep getting worse, by the way.
Missing 1.7 million Americans from the workforce compared to February 2020.
Yep.
The McKinsey Global Institute estimates that U.S. GDP could have been $296 to $442 billion higher in 2023 if the country
do
had been
wanna
able
say,
to fill its job vacancies.
I do think
A lot
that
of
some of
people
these,
just don't
a
wanna do
lot of
some
these
jobs.
companies,
suggest the impact
I think a lot of these companies, the job postings are fake. They're posting about, oh, we have jobs, apply for them, but they're not actually hiring anyone for them. I'm not sure why, but I think that is
of
true.
men leaving or never entering the workforce could be more sector specific.
You need young men
Well, it's
coming.
also people not getting paid enough fucking money, right? Like if you like, oh yeah, you want to go work at McDonald's and be called a loser by basically everybody in society and get paid a shit wage and have to do one of the hardest jobs. Like, I'm sorry, but like streaming is hard in a lot of ways, but I feel like there's almost no fucking job that's harder than working in a kitchen.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
yes.
Like, I had to work in a kitchen before for a very, very short period of time. I've got
It is
my,
miserable. It is
I've
hot.
got my
People are
name tag
yelling.
for it right here, and it was absolutely fucking awful.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine living like that regularly. Like, I quit immediately, basically.
Yes.
Oil rig? Well, the thing is, if you're working on an oil rig, you're probably getting paid, $180, $250
And
a year, right? So
nobody
you're getting
nobody says like, oh, you work on an oil rig, But you say, oh yeah, I work at McDonald's. There is classism. There is 110% classism. Which jobs are seen as respectable and which ones are not. And I wish they were all seen as respectable. Dude is working. You are working. You are providing a service. You are doing good things. You are, standing on your own 2 feet. That is respectable. That is something that you should be very proud of. And you have everyone, talking smack about you or refusing to, dude, what are you talking about? They pay their own bills.
Getting huge money. So yeah, obviously this is very dangerous. It's scary, but you're getting paid a lot of money. Not really. How much does a roughneck make on an oil rig? So it's looking like the average is $47 a year, and the salary for the top 10 cities is all over $110,000. 47. Oh, sorry, not $47 a year. That's for making Nike. Over in Malaysia, no, $47 an hour.
Place those people going
Sector specific.
You need young men coming in wanting to replace those people going out, and so if men have,
I think this is another factor, is that now that we have better health services,
that is $101,000 a year. General,
boomers are staying in, and older Gen X are staying in the workforce longer than people that were before them were staying in the workforce as well.
Yes,
because they maintain health for a longer period of time.
They are taking jobs that should normally be opening up so that the new people can move up, right? Like for example, if all the upper level management positions are taken up by people that are in their 60s and 70s that should have retired last year, now I can't move up. I can't become a supervisor or a manager because Dave, that's almost 80 years old, won't go home. Go home already. Please, I need to be able to move up. I need to be able to start my life. I need to be able to make enough money so that then I can have a family and I can have a house and I can, afford all of these things. But because you won't move, I cannot move up. And because I can't move up, the person down below me can't move up. And because they can't move up, now the person that should be getting hired on as, the bottom representative can't get hired on because there's somebody blocking it. And that person can't move up because I'm blocking it. And I can't move up because the boomer won't leave.
More manual labor, more blue skilled and skilled trades. Yeah. If they're older and they're leaving in their retirement.
And then at the same time, they don't want to leave anything behind for their children or to the next generation because, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps. You pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You just want a free meal ticket. My grandpa did that. That generational wealth that he had created is gone. And they want to increase, right. They want to increase retirement age, right? To keep people working longer so that then you can't move up for more time. Oh my God. It just feels like you're being attacked from 20 different angles. And if it was just 3 or 4 or even 5, hell, even 10 different angles, you might be able to make some leeway, but you just can't. It just seems like everything is kind of collapsing in on itself and you just can't. It's a boat with too many holes and you can't plug them all fast enough. The moment you try to plug one hole, another hole opens up.
And there's not as many young men coming in, both because of declining cohort sizes, but moving in a different direction type of careers. We're going to be losing that sector of productivity.
Mm-hmm. Despite a steep rise in federal funding, the infrastructure sector hasn't been able to find enough workers, with the construction workforce shortage surpassing 500,000 in 2024.
Jesus.
We are a little concerned about the impact that inflation is going to have and has had on the movement of infrastructure dollars into the actual productive activity. Having a shortage of men in construction is going to raise a problem.
The trend could have a
a
dire
big one, yeah.
socio-political impact
Yeah,
as well.
because
It'll get worse
why?
in ways that
Think
we
about
would
it.
not like. I mean, I think we
Why
need to
aren't men
more
working in
Okay.
construction?
Well, the problem is like,
And it's because of pay and
inflation
retirement.
effectively is doing the opposite. So it's like, there are a lot of guys that work.
You
like,
are breaking your
my
back and you're
understanding
making
of
30 grand a
construction,
year.
which is like
What?
kind of disconnected.
No.
Is that if you're like on the ground, you're probably making okay money, but the foreman is making pretty good money, and the guy that the foreman answers to is making really good money, and the guy above that is like a millionaire. So like construction does have a lot of money in it, but again, the guy that's above the foreman, that guy is like a top, probably a
Siphoning
top
all of
10%
the-
intelligence person.
all of the money.
So like if you're in that bottom 20% and you're kind of stupid, you're never going to make it up that ladder. It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Not all in the top 10. Not all. Well, I mean, like in general, right? You're going to have people like there is clearly a correlation between high status jobs and jobs that require, like a lot of thinking and intelligence, right? And IQ. Like that, fucking obviously. Construction is hard on the body, though. Not enough young people want to do that to themselves. I think so. I think more
Yes.
people would do it if it paid more.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. More
Nepotism
people would do
overrides
it if
everything
it
in
paid
skill.
more, which
Hey,
means
look,
that the person
listen,
up at the top of the ladder
there's
has to take a
always
smaller
going to be
cut,
factors
but he
that are
ain't
out
going to
of your
do that.
control. But if you want to talk about that, you're right. But I'm talking about averages. If you want to look at averages here, those guys that are millionaires or, they're very...
Because think about it like this, right? Think about it like this. If that guy up at the top, there are 20 projects that need to get done, but he only has enough workers to do 5 projects. He can maximize how much money he makes while taking on less risk by only having to do 5 projects. And he can say, well, I would do your project, but this project across the street is paying better. You think you can toss more money into this project and then I would consider yours? Whereas if he has enough employees to do 20 projects, now he has to take on the responsibility of 20 projects. And they're not going to try to bid to compete with one another. So why would he? Why would he hire more people? So he can take on more risk, more responsibility for what?
Close to it through construction. These people are not stupid. They are not stupid people. They're not like some dumbass idiot. Like these are people that understand a lot of shit.
Premature deaths, but it will also likely lead to radicalization and polarization, because this is a frustrated, left behind group with no options.
Yeah.
They are becoming frustrated and radicalized. Andrew
They'll
Tate.
never have a solution, and men that are unskilled will become increasingly less worthwhile.
And the thing is, I don't know how to fix
and
this.
we will be entering
I
a
have no
where
idea.
A person's
I know
value
I've talked
is
a lot about
basically
this
the value
and
of
all
their
the problems,
body parts.
but I have
Sooner
no
than later,
earthly
as
idea
these jobs
where you even
become
begin
less
to
and
fix
less,
this.
Possible to do. That's what's happening. They're not coming back. They're not going to be back. The only way that they could come back is if we had some sort of neo-feudalism serfdom. That's it.
And problems that government can't address.
So one of the first functions that beats out policy is economic growth. You have a strong economy, you're going to have increased wage structure, and it's going to bring people back into the market.
More than a quarter of prime age men.
I don't think that's true.
No, it's not.
I think that's not true anymore, at least, because the jobs that are being added into the workforce are very high skill and very technical.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're having like a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built, right? A lot of like unskilled jobs.
Instead of
like,
10 people
there's job growth, but
doing
it's jobs that are highly technical.
Flipping burgers,
Or
you
jobs
have
that are
one
extremely
person
demanding,
who
like
fixes the
construction.
burger flipping machine.
Not looking for work, cited insufficient pay as a reason preventing them from work. And nearly half said competitive pay, salary, compensation, and or bonuses was a very important factor when considering whether to enter or return to the workforce.
Yeah, because a man in our society, if you don't make a lot of money, you're considered to be a loser. That's one of the biggest indicators of success in our culture is money.
For the young, better training, skills training.
I don't think that's necessarily
some
true.
form of post-high school education, encouraging that maybe even subsidizing that. I think part of the youth mental health crisis has to do with what's next. What's AI going to do? What am I going to do? Are there any stable jobs? I can't afford college. All those questions all come together. And so models that help them kind of give them a jump start can be really effective ways of intervening. And there are actually now really promising programs in high schools which teach kids financial literacy. They teach them about equitable entrepreneurship.
Finally.
They teach them about how do you foster better mental health as part of the workplace. And it seems to inspire kids to go on to college, right? Because they sort of see a pathway where they didn't see it before.
29.
I do want to say that the problem that I'm talking about, where it's like dumb people that won't be able to find employment because there are no jobs, this is an unsolvable problem. You're not going to be able to educate this out of them. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, but like, there are a lot of people that are not part of that are still affected by this, and it does help them.
Yes.
Percent of men out of the labor force said that training and educational programs was another important factor in considering a return to the workforce.
There are people that can be trained out of, uneducated, but there are people that you can't. It's like a serial killer. How do you train them to be not a serial killer? You can't. That's why they get life sentences. You can't fix them.
Having the type of commitment from the employer to train and retain and offer upward mobility for workers, I think, will be very important. I
think that upward mobility and the lack thereof is a really big factor. And I think that now that the internet has given people an extra level of awareness, I think that you see now how much nepotism and how much unfairness there is in the workforce and in life. So when you see how this happens all the time, it serves as a massive, massive, massive demotivator. Now, obviously, you still have to do that. You clearly have to, and you can succeed despite that. But seeing people succeed when they don't deserve it is very demotivating for a lot of average guys. Yeah, like it really is awful, me being a personal victim to it. Yeah, I mean, and I think that it happens to everybody. And it's not even just like, there's also okay, like I've seen plenty of memes and it's like, okay, you're at a construction, it's a construction work site. And it's like it shows like all the different guys that are working there. It's like the old guy that's like working, he's doing his best. The young guy who's like kind of stupid. And then it shows like, it's like the foreman's son. And he's like this.
And he becomes the foreman.
Like I get it, right? I definitely get it. And so like you see that happen, and then guess what? Yeah, in the car, right? Yeah, he's sitting in the car. That's obviously extremely demotivating. And so as a guy, when you see that happen and you feel like you don't have these advantages for yourself, then what the fuck are you gonna do? And it's a massive demotivator. And I'm not saying like, because obviously like you have to keep working even though that's true. Like it's not an excuse to just stop working, but for a lot of people, it's a pretty big reason. That's how postal service works, working for mom and dad. Well, I think that there's a lot of things like this.
Figure out more about career pathways in the labor market and not just the education side. So how is it that someone moves from first job, next job to best job? How do we help people understand and navigate?
Yeah, it's like if there's no light at the end of the tunnel, don't be surprised if people don't want to get in the tunnel. Fucking obviously.
Yes.
A quarter of working Americans said they weren't satisfied with their growth opportunities in the workplace.
Yeah. I'm surprised
compared
it's
to
not
other
more.
OECD countries that on average spend 0.1% of their GDP on training their workers. The US spent only 0.03% of their GDP on job training in 2022.
Older age groups, it's tougher. You're probably not going to get these guys to retrain, but you can there are a lot of programs that have largely been pioneered in the UK, much more than here, but we're starting to pick up on them, that literally just try and reboot community activities.
This is something that was very popular in like the 40s with FDR. He did this a lot, and it was like generally even now, like, it's looked back on as a positive, right?
Yes, it was massive training programs.
And somebody said, let me see if I can read this real quick. I don't know where it was, but yeah,
labor
somebody
jobs
said basically,
like welding,
if you think other people's
electricians,
success is
all
your
that kind of
failure, then
stuff.
you deserve to fail. That's not
And,
true. Like, if you have one promotion,
building the Hoover Dam and the entire interstate system, the highways, that was a project.
that's at your office, and the person that gets it for a reason they shouldn't have gotten it for, there is absolutely a zero-sum environment that you operate in. To say otherwise is so disingenuous. Absolutely, it is a zero-sum environment. There is scarcity of everything. And if somebody gets something, in a lot of cases, it means you're not getting it. That's just how it is.
Get these isolated people in despair out of their houses. It can make a difference.
Social programs like disability benefits spark contentious debate.
It's very controversial. People have very strong opinions about this. While we don't know why it is happening, we can be pretty clear that the social welfare programs are helping and the disability programs.
It's a cultural issue too. I think a lot of it for men is a cultural issue. Where like there's always discussions around toxic masculinity, all the things that men are doing wrong. It's popular in media to have men look like idiots in sitcoms.
Yes.
There are advantages and programs that are existent for the benefit of women, but not for men. There are a lot of things, like, especially if you're a young guy, you feel like the odds are stacked against you. And I think that's true. Like, there's a lot of massive disadvantages that men have. Being a man's very hard. I mean, I've said before, I'm so glad I'm a guy and not a girl, right? Like, I am so glad. I would not want to be a girl, right? Because I think it's worse. But as a young guy, especially, like, I'm 34 now, right? So, like, I'm not in that part of my life anymore. But as a guy who's 20, think about the opportunities that women have when they're 20 and think about the opportunities that men have whenever they're 20. They're very different. And for a lot of you guys, how many of you guys are like around my age and you've seen that pendulum swing, right? Where like there are those women that you knew in high school, maybe, or college, that, you know, were getting all of these advantages and benefits and now they're not anymore. And there's men now that are doing very well. Yeah, exactly. I've seen it. I see it, right? And like the thing is that, like, but a young man, a 20 and 19-year-old guy isn't going to see that. He's not going to see that because he hasn't
experienced it yet.
He's not 40 yet. He's not 35. He's not 30 yet. So that's the problem. Late game glow up. There it is. Yeah, men have really good late game scaling.
Helping to finance this situation in a way that was never originally intended.
A 2018 analysis by the Joint Economic Committee found that 64% of prime-age men who aren't working were receiving some sort of government assistance.
So the one benefit that they rely heavily on is disability insurance. One, because they often are unable to work if they have a physical injury or high levels of addiction or whatever. But it also provides health insurance, which is huge.
Very much against the initial intentions of the founders of the program. They've ended up with a perverse situation that too often subsidizes or even incentivizes helplessness and long-term dependence. If we thought
it's inevitable. I don't think that there's any way around having some sort of universal basic income. I feel like it is inevitable. We either have to have that or we have to kill a bunch of people. Like most people, basically. We can't afford it. Well, then you have to kill them. Because, like, if you don't kill them, then they'll kill you. Because they don't have any money. They have
you can't afford it. You can if you tax the corporations properly. But nobody wants to do that.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, that's just what's going to happen. Like, you can't have a massive underclass of people that has no purchasing power that effectively is a slave class.
Yes.
This is a recipe for disease.
It is a recipe for disaster because they end up revolting. And who do you think? Who do you think has all the guns? Who do you think spends their weekends on the range and stocking up guns for the Raptor or whatever? Do you think that it is like any of those people that work at those companies in Silicon Valley? Do you think it's any of them? Maybe a few. Maybe you could count them on two hands out of the hundreds, if not thousands, that live in Silicon Valley. Now, go somewhere where you don't have those types. Let's just pick, I don't know, Mississippi, where almost everyone's got a gun. More than one. What do you think is going to happen if they decide, I don't like this anymore?
Disaster. Like, it is. Like, it's not going to work. Isn't that scary? Well, I'm just saying, like, that's what's going to happen.
It is very scary. But that is
Causes
what
civil
happens.
unrest. Think about how it was in 2020 with all those riots.
Mm-hmm. We were very close to a boiling over point there.
We had a work-first principle where the incentives were for getting the training.
French Revolution filter? French Revolution was against the royalty versus aristocracy. It was not, the French Revolution was not the poor people going and killing the rich people. It was the rich people killing the royalty.
It would be more similar to the Russian Revolution.
And then showing up at the job and then staying at the job, I think we'd be in a lot better place than we are today.
However,
using the
some
poor to
experts
fight.
remain
Yeah, exactly.
doubtful about whether altering the benefits program will lead to meaningful results.
I think until we deal with the deeper problem of ill health, ill mental health, these guys aren't
the
gonna
Chinese
respond to
Revolution as
incentives.
well.
Everybody
That
is
helped to establish the Communist Party.
for their brothers. Everybody's responsible for their neighbors and their friends.
No, they're not.
And we ourselves as
just not gonna
citizens
happen.
can help to shine a spotlight on this. It shouldn't be America's invisible problem. And the more that we talk about it, the more that we pay attention to it, the closer we get to turning this around.
I'm going to be honest. This is going to be very, very toxic masculinity. I think that we indulge people's mental health too much.
No.
I think that we listen to how people feel too much. Suck it the fuck up and deal with it.
No, I don't agree with that. Right. Because suck it the fuck up and deal with it is, leads to gun violence in schools. Because those people are generally folks that do not feel seen. They are bullied and they snap. That is not something I want more of.
Be a fucking man. Stop being a bitch.
No.
I don't know when the idea of being stoic and working hard and being able to control yourself and rise above your emotions was seen as a bad thing.
The problem is that that this is one of his worst
enabling
takes.
that type of behavior just creates losers.
Okay, because when during that time period where emotions were seen as like men needed to be stoic and they couldn't feel, express these feelings. What feelings were men allowed to express? Anger and happiness. Right? And when their dog dies, they shed a single tear in the movies. That is not good. That's not the full human experience. That is a lot of repression and burying things and shoving them deeper into the closet. And you just keep shoving it all into the closet. And then that rolls over into the next generation. That rolls over into you teaching your child that. And when you can't release those emotions in a healthy way, it gets released in other ways. It gets released through addiction because you are trying to, run away. You're trying to distract yourself from the problems that are piling up and spilling out of your closet. You don't want to look at the stuff that's in the closet. Why was domestic abuse those numbers used to be so high, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? Because men weren't able to express those feelings. And there is a level of where you can express and then you're sharing too much. You are only being emotional. There is a balance there, and it has to be found. And I think right now the reason why Asmon is saying, we need to roll back that way is because of the pendulum swing. Right? There was a moment where, there's too much stoicism. There's not enough emotion at all. And then it swings, and then we found the right moment, but it stays for very briefly, right? And then it comes back up, and then we're back over here to where there's too much emotion. It's man up time. But if you look at a pendulum swinging, the time that it spends the longest amount is on these two ends. When it comes down to the middle, it doesn't stay there very long. And we missed it. I think the best time was probably in like the 2000s and early 2010s. Somewhere in there. Not that whole period, but it was somewhere in there. And now we've swung too far to the other direction. I don't agree with this at all. Like, no. Because that's an Andrew Tate take, and I don't agree with that at all. That is the toxic masculinity that everyone talks about. That is what the feminists talk about when they say toxic masculinity. That right there. If you listen to any women talk about how they feel around masculine women or butch lesbians, they say that it is healthy masculinity because it feels safe. It feels like being in the room with like The Rock or the guy who plays Captain America or Henry Cavill, right? Henry Cavill. Okay. That is the masculinity that people want. That's healthy masculinity. He talks about his nerdy little things about the 40K. He dives into The Witcher. He has those interests. He has depth. He is a whole person. He would still be doing those things if he was, working as a construction worker or if he was making millions of dollars. That is who he is. It's not a show for him to do that. It's something that he enjoys. Andrew Tate is the toxic masculinity because all he has is his manhood. And if you took that away from him, he doesn't have anything. There's nothing else there. Nobody wants to be with someone like that, right? He does get women, but it's because of money. Do you think those women would be there if he didn't have any more money? I don't think so. You don't want to be like that. That is not a person to aspire to. Aspire to be Henry Cavill. And it's hard because you have to experience life to the fullest. You have to, have interests, have hobbies, be in touch with your feelings and your emotions. And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces. There are a lot of things that, that you have to divide your attention up into, where the Andrew Tate method is, money. That's easy. Anyone can do it. That's why there are so many grifters that are doing it. You don't see a lot of people like Henry Cavill. You don't see, the dad YouTuber that is like Henry Cavill, because it is hard. And nobody wants a hard path. And that goes into, being a man, taking the hard path, taking the path that is less traveled. Look, these people saying losers lose. Whatever. Decent advice. It is not decent advice at all. It is terrible advice.
That's it.
Yeah. No, that was that last bit, not good, dude. That's not the answer.